the Maryland General Assembly. And we are very excited about Time to Care. It's the legislation for equitable paid family leave and medical leave. And we believe that now is the time. Working families shouldn't have to wait any longer. So for the past couple of months, over some time, we've spent a lot of time building a very broad and diverse coalition from businesses to unions to community organizations, residents, and really just anyone who cares about bringing paid family leave to Maryland because it's such an important issue. And I think over the past year, we've really seen how the pandemic has highlighted the need to be able to take paid time off and not have to choose between taking care of yourself and a loved one and going to work. So we're going to be pushing really hard to get the legislation passed. And we want to make sure that the legislation includes 12 weeks of paid leave. And it also will protect workers against adverse consequences so that if you have to use the leave, you shouldn't be in fear that you're going to lose your job. It's going to be cost effective for both employees and the employer. And we want to make sure that it covers all workers and has an inclusive definition of family. So before the start of the pandemic and throughout, we consistently heard from working families how much this benefit is needed. And we know that there's overwhelming support for this issue. We're going to actually hear about some of that a little bit later today. And as of today, the Time to Care Act is supported by all of the Democratic candidates for governor, except the newest candidate just got in and hasn't responded yet. But they all believe that Maryland can and should do better when it comes to working families. So there's a great deal of support across the state, and we're really ramping up our campaign. We know that there are still people who believe in profits over people. So we plan to spend around 6 figures or so on this effort so that our elected leaders can really hear from voters, both the mail, the radio, on the phone, social media. We'll be at community meetings. We'll be at lawyers' malls. We're going to be everywhere talking about this issue. So we really do have a robust campaign. And most importantly, it includes all of the folks that are here with us today. Just want to thank you all for your support. You are, our secret weapon. But outside of this campaign that we built, we have 2 of the very best bill sponsors. We have Delegate Valderrama and Senator Hayes, who have been working tirelessly on this effort day in and day out. So I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the work that they've done and introduce our amazing bill sponsors, Senator Antonio Hayes and Delegate Chris Valderrama. But before they do begin, please, if you have any questions that you would like to ask today, please place them in the chat. And we will definitely we'll get to them later on in our program. But right now, please allow me to welcome Senator Hayes. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Ricard, and thank you for having me. I am Senator Antonio Hayes. I represent the 40th Legislative District in Baltimore City. I'm proud to be here today. And first, before I go any further, I want to thank this coalition. This coalition has been so amazing at raising the issue across the board. And this year, really turning up the volume on why this is so important at this individual time. Also want to thank my Senate colleagues as well as my House colleagues for their continued support and sponsorship of the Time to Care Act, as well as their support otherwise. At a time when families, working families across Maryland are hurting, we need policies that center families in our economy. The research is clear. Paid family leave is good for parents, is good for workers, is good for child development, and is good for our economy. To share my personal experience, I had the opportunity to be raised by my grandmother from middle school until I had the opportunity to graduate from college. And after 25 years of hard work in a wire factory, later in her retirement years, she succumbed to Alzheimer's. And so where she took time out of her life to raise her grandson and me, now I find myself in a position where I share responsibility with my uncle and one of my cousins in taking care of her. And there's many, many more families like this. And on a more joyous note, I'm told by many of my friends that my life will change in just the next 4 to 5 weeks, as for the first time, my wife and I welcome a brand new baby. And so we're really excited about that. But unlike the opportunities that we have to take away from work and be compensated, there's many families that don't have that opportunity afforded to them when they're experiencing the birth of a new child. And so we want to make sure that this experience is shared with all working families throughout the state of Maryland. As what does it say about our society, and what does it say to our families when we deny workers paid time off to care for special people in their lives? I know the challenges that my constituents face and Marylanders face, but today we're sending a clear message that Maryland is overdue for change. We're one of the, in Maryland and in this country, we're one of the only industrialized nations that do not provide compensated family leave to their families. And so paid family and medical leave means a strong economy, healthier families and business, greater equity regardless of a person's job, and more workplace equity for women. And so again, I want to thank this coalition, because really it's the hard work of all the various members of this coalition who really advocated in support of the legislation that Delegate Valderrama and I had the awesome opportunity to champion. And so I want to thank you for all your hard work. And we have to get this done on behalf of working families here in Maryland. So I'm looking forward to a successful legislative session where we're finally able to deliver for so many working families here in Maryland. Thank you so much, Ricard, for the opportunity this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Senator Hayes. Congrats on the new baby. I'm very excited for you and your wife, and for all the work that you're doing to make sure that all new parents will be able to enjoy, spending much needed time with their newborns. So thank you again for all the work in the Senate. I would like to now introduce our House sponsor, Delegate Valderrama. Thank you for being here, and good morning.
Good morning, Ricard, and good morning to all here for the coalition and for the media and press who have joined us this morning. I'd say that this is not new news to everyone that is on this call, on this Zoom. Sorry, I'm so used to saying call. With that said, I don't want to be repetitive, but it is hard to follow after the senator's comments. We tend to say the same thing. We share similar experiences. And this is not the first press conference that we've had on this issue. As many of you here know, this is the fourth year? I've lost track now. And even prior to us being, at least for myself, sponsor, this has been an ongoing issue for years now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's approaching a decade. But having said all that, the senator had mentioned some commentary that I was going to mention when he mentioned us being an industrialized nation. So I think I'll just pick up briefly and just mention, which I have mentioned in the past and in my past testimonies before the Economic Matters Committee, and that is there are colleagues on both sides of the aisle, mostly opposite across the aisle, who will mention that we have FMLA, and that is true. But just to reiterate, the FMLA program, which was passed, 90s, 93, it was groundbreaking, but to say that it was remarked as a great advance for employees of all pay grades and the like, because it guaranteed workers up to 12 weeks of job protected leave to recover from an illness or a care for a newborn, in which Senator Hayes will be experiencing shortly. Congrats. Care for an ill family member or military purposes, everything that we all know already. But what most people don't know is that, and this is where I say here's the rub, is that something often misunderstood is that leave, FMLA, is unpaid, whereas Time to Care Act bill, Family Medical Leave program is paid up to 12 weeks. And we've repeated this on and on, is that we're trying to compare it to the unemployment insurance program. So it's an insurance program, but you may never have to use it, which great. The other argument from across the aisle is that some employers have better benefits, and that's where I come in with the whole, where I just said that if they don't need to use it, but at least it's there for their benefit, God forbid they need to use it. So there's really I try to put myself in those people's shoes who are opposed or don't like the bill as is. And I really don't understand it quite honestly. And I am trying to keep an open mind as to why there is opposition on this issue. But I will say, as Senator Hayes mentioned his personal experience, I too have a personal experience, and that would be my mother, who is up above watching over us as a guardian angel now. And every time I mention it, I keep thinking I can get through it really quickly, and I can. So having said that, I was at an employer some years ago, where I took a lot of leave, extended leave, which I earned, by the way. I used my vacation and my sick leave to care for my mother, who had many issues, to include Alzheimer's as well. And to think that because I earned my leave and to care for my mother, only to come back at certain points for my job to be questioned and interrogated as to why I was using such a significant amount of leave was, one, much to say, very hurtful for me, who has worked tirelessly at my employer, the job that I actually love, right? And to only be questioned as to why I took such an amount of significant leave off. And to explain to them, when I did tell them why I was doing it, I was not reprimanded or anything, but to me, that was a reprimand, to question my intentions as to why. So with that said, as you can see, I take this very personally, and why I am very humbled and honored to stand by my colleague, Senator Hayes, in moving this legislation forward. So with that said, we need to get this done. And I'm happy to say that I cannot speak for my colleague across, in the other chamber for his I'm saying administration, what am I saying? You know what I mean. I cannot speak for the Senate President. I know he has good intentions for this bill. I can say that Speaker Adrienne Jones has repeatedly said this is a priority of hers on her legislative agenda. So I'm happy to report that, repeat it, however you want to interpret it. Forgive my emotion here. Do not mistake tears for weakness, because as I repeatedly say to my colleagues, I may be a small Asian lady here, but I'm very feisty and spicy and will fight for what's right. And Senator knows that, and this is one of them. So it's time to move the Time to Care Act bill. So thank you for having me this morning. It's my honor.
Thank you so much, Delegate Valderrama. I just want to give you my condolences and appreciate you sharing such a personal story. I recently lost a parent, so I understand that the grief doesn't go away. So I thank you for sharing that with us. And you also mentioned that you've been working on this issue for a number of years. So I just want to tell you that we all really appreciate your continued commitment to this issue. And we appreciate your leadership and your willingness to work with opposition to get them on board and have these tough conversations, because we need everyone on board to move this forward. So we appreciate that. We thank you for that. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very broad, diverse coalition. The next speaker is actually a member of our coalition and the director of advocacy. She's also a very remarkable leader. I would like to introduce you to Regan Vaughn with Catholic Charities. Welcome. Good morning, Regan.
Good morning. Thank you, Ricara. And thank you to our sponsors, Senator Hayes and Delegate Valderrama. Their commitment and really personal stake in this bill has been truly inspiring to all of our coalition members. As Ricara mentioned, my name is Regan Vaughn. I'm the Director of Advocacy for Catholic Charities of Baltimore. For almost 100 years, Catholic Charities has provided care and services to Marylanders in need. We've grown to offer 80 programs at more than 300 sites through Central and Western Maryland. And we strongly support the Time to Care Act because it touches every aspect of the services we offer. At our 24 senior housing communities, we have residents who are often forced to leave these community-based homes for institutional care because their family members aren't able to take the time to care for them after a fall or a brief bout of illness. At St. Vincent's Villa, our residential treatment center for children, we work with families who have the additional burden of worrying about losing their job while they're desperately trying to seek help for a child who has significant emotional or behavioral needs. Our emergency shelters are regularly serving families whose spells of homelessness are spurred on by a lack of paid leave. These stories permeate our agency. There are numerous collateral consequences when there is a serious illness in the family. And what's most striking about this issue for me as an advocate is the stories pop up on their own. I don't have to go searching for them. A few years ago, I brought a witness down to testify in support of the temporary cash assistance budget. And she surprised me by starting her testimony with, "I lost my job when my obstetrician put me on restricted activity. That's why I received temporary cash assistance." This lack of access to paid family and medical leave is a widespread problem affecting Marylanders in every county in our state, and it needs a solution. And that's why we've brought forth the Time to Care Act. It will bring resolution to this issue and make it so no Marylander has to choose between paying the rent and taking care of their own health. No Marylander should have to choose between feeding their older children and bonding with their newborn. And no Marylander should have to choose between keeping their job and caring for their parents. We need to stop asking Marylanders to make these impossible choices. This is the year Maryland must pass the Time to Care Act, and Catholic Charities is standing here with our coalition members to make sure that it happens in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regan. Thank you for really highlighting that this is an issue from Western Maryland all the way to the Eastern Shore, right? And that workers are having to make impossible choices. And now is the year that we can actually address that. So again, thank you so much for the work that you and your organization do across the state of Maryland. I would like now to introduce Monica Roberts. She's a member of SEIU 500 and a retired school administrative secretary for Montgomery County that's joining us this morning. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Monica Roberts. I'm a retired school administrative secretary in Montgomery County Public Schools. I was an active member of SEIU Local 500 for 30 years. And after my retirement in 2018, I signed on to the Retiree Council for Local 500. I'm here today to share with you some thoughts about the need for paid family and medical leave from my perspective as a mother and a senior citizen. When a family member goes through a health crisis, it is not just only a crisis for that person, it's a family crisis. Family members step in to provide much needed support and resources, but at what cost to everybody? Paid family and medical leave would provide the support and the resources at the time when a family needs it the most. In 2016, I became ill and required life-saving surgery, along with a difficult recovery period. I can testify to how important it is to be able to have your child or loved one able to take the time off from work to take care of you. My daughter, Patty, was there with me every step of the way. She was able to take the time off for work to care for me at the hospital and at home, and to take me back and forth to my doctor's appointments. She did this regardless of the financial burden or the strain it put on her family. She did this because I am her mother, and that was the end of that. No Marylander should have to choose between taking care of a loved one and collecting a paycheck. In 2018, complications from that surgery became another life-saving event. By this time, I had retired and was living on a very tight retiree budget. I was concerned about co-pays, hospital stays, and my daily cost of living. My daughter, Patty, was with me again. The extreme weight of the situation we were in opened the door for worry, and that interfered with my healing. Thankfully, I recovered, and my family was able to sustain themselves during my illness. These are choices that no one should have to make. When I was first asked to speak here to you today, I was concerned about telling my story. Would you really listen? And would you understand what I was telling you? Thinking about the possibility of another health crisis, I find myself extremely scared. Assessing the specifics, a child who wants to take care of her mother, but the financial burden to do so is not only frightening, but lends itself to a feeling of helplessness. What if I become so ill where I need help around the clock? How can I ask my daughter to take time from her work and put her financial burden on her to take care of her family and help me? The freedom to put the financial concerns to the side and be able to be there for a family member in need is what we all need and should be able to earn through our jobs. The time to pass this vital legislation is now, and I call on the General Assembly to act this year to pass the Time to Care Act 2022. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you for your years of service to the public school system, and for sharing your experiences and talking about, what you personally had to deal with and how important this legislation will be to you and other families across the state. Next, we have Rebecca Coppola. She's a family nurse practitioner from Baltimore and also a 1199 member. So I want to welcome you. Good morning. Good morning, Rebecca.
Thanks. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Rebecca Coppola, and I'm a family nurse practitioner and a member of 1199 SEIU working in primary care. I grew up in Maryland, and it's my privilege to make a living by giving back to my community. I'm here today because I've personally needed my paid family leave, and because every day I see the profound impact that paid leave would have on the health of my patients. The bottom line is that people need time to recover from childbirth and to bond and heal as a new family. No one should have to choose between their family's health and a paycheck that they need. I had my first child in April of 2020, just as the pandemic hit. At the time, my husband was working several part-time jobs. He had flexibility, but no paid time off. So every time he didn't work, we lost money that our family needed. And he never had the chance to focus fully on bonding with our new baby. Our second baby was born this November, and he now has 2 weeks of paid leave, which means he has time to help me recover and to help our new family adjust. He can help out with crying kids at 4 a.m. without having to worry about work the next day. 2 weeks is better than nothing, but I can assure you 4 a.m. duties don't end at 2 weeks. While I'm able to stay home, not all of my colleagues or patients can do the same. It's a terrible thing to be forced to choose work over healing and bonding as a family. I recently saw a baby for a 2-week check, and mom told me she was planning to get back to work at 3 weeks postpartum because she needed the money. I encouraged her to take time to fully recover and bond with the baby because as a care provider, I know that the first few months of life have a huge impact on her child's future. No one should be making that kind of choice. We can and should do better. Every child in Maryland deserves a chance to spend the first few months of their life with parents who don't have to worry about losing a job, paying rent, or putting food on the table. Investing in healthy kids is investing in Maryland's future.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing your story. Congratulations on the babies. So we noted this legislation, as you heard earlier, Senator Antonio Hayes said that this legislation is good for workers, it's good for businesses, it's good for the economy, which is exactly why we have a large number of businesses that have signed on in support. And this morning, we actually have a business owner here with us this morning, Andy Shalal. He is the CEO of Busboys and Poets, and is going to talk to us a little bit about how he runs his business and how much this benefit would be important to his employees. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm hearing all the compelling testimony about why this is necessary. I'm not sure any legislator, even the ones that are maybe not supporting this, would say that it's not needed. Oftentimes, the reason that they cite is because it's costly to businesses and it might put businesses out of business. I'm here to tell you that we have 3 locations in Maryland. Right now, we have one in Hyattsville. I'm the owner of Busboys and Poets. We have one in Hyattsville, one in Baltimore, and one in Columbia. And we have approximately 300 employees that work in those locations, mostly Marylanders. Um, and I have to tell you, I mean, my reason for supporting this is not just because of the compelling testimony that I think we've heard today, but also as a business person, it makes perfect business sense. In this effort to try to attract the best and the brightest people, you need to have benefits. People are asking for it and they need it. We have seen through this COVID pandemic the importance of having the ability to take time off when necessary and not have to choose between trying to just load yourself up with Advil or aspirin or something and pretend like you're okay and maybe infecting others through this process. So I just want to really admonish the legislators and thank the ones that are supporting this, the Time to Care Act, to say that this is really good for business. We have thrived because we have these types of benefits for our employees. If we did not have these types of benefits for our employees, we would not be able to attract the best and the brightest people. So, you know, we are in a jurisdiction area where people can go from Maryland to DC to other places. DC already has this, and we have seen and we've been paying into it as a fund. Now the Maryland one shares the employee and the employer contribution, and DC is just the employer contribution, and has worked for us, despite the fact that a lot of conversation before this happened was saying that businesses may go out of business because they have to do this. I think that's ridiculous. We are in the hospitality industry in particular, we are in the people business, and people doesn't mean just customers. People also mean the people that work in our places. Every business needs employees. Every business needs good employees. Every business needs healthy employees. And in order for us to be able to have some kind of egalitarian system that really allows everyone to have a level playing field, we need to have this kind of legislation through government. I always think having one-off, so one business doing it here and one business is doing there, doesn't really make sense. You know, it really needs to be an overall thing. And I have to say that we here in the United States are way behind other nations all over the world. People have figured this out, that we as human beings have needs. I bet none of the legislators, even the ones that may be voting against it, are saying that it's not okay for me to take time off if I need it because of an illness or because of a family member that needs me. And I will have to lose my pay and be able to lose an opportunity to be able to feed my family and choose between the two. That makes no sense whatsoever. So as a business person, I admonish you, I admonish the legislature to be able to pass this. This makes sense. It has worked. It has worked not only in other jurisdictions all over the United States, but has worked all over the world. And we need to walk into this not screaming and yelling, but really with our eyes wide open and our hearts open and our pocketbooks open and say, this is going to work for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. And thanks for just talking about how this benefit really will help recruit and retain workers. And it also levels the playing field for small businesses. As you said, we've seen this work in other jurisdictions and other countries. So why not do it now in Maryland?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if any of you live near Busboy and Poets, go there, have lunch, dinner, do take out. The food is awesome. So next we have Steve Robbie. He's an expert in public opinion. He owns Opinion Works and has conducted paid family and medical leave polling at the end of 2021. And he's going to provide an overview of some of the polling results. Good morning, Steve.
Sorry about that. I was muted. So good morning, Ricard, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am pleased to share with you the results of a brand new poll. As you can see, just finished a few days ago. My firm Opinion Works has been polling Marylanders for over 20 years. We've conducted a very representative sample by wireless and landline phone and online, which is the best methodology that we have today. Over 1,000 interviews, as you can see, completed a few days ago. You've heard many good reasons why this legislation should be passed. I'd like to share with you what the voters of Maryland think about this legislation. So let's just begin here. And you can see the question wording that we used at the bottom of the screen. But in describing this paid family and medical leave proposal to voters in this way, an astonishing 88%, an overwhelming number of Maryland voters, almost 9 out of 10, support the legislation. Only 9% are opposed. The strength of support is impressive as well. 61% support the legislation strongly. There's a great deal of intensity behind voter opinion, but the other point that I'd like to make is the lack of partisanship in the support. It's across the board. So 94% of Democrats, 77% of registered Republicans in the state, and 85% of unaffiliated voters are supporting this proposal. What about the impact on legislators? I mean, just getting down to brass tacks, I would like to point out that this is a political positive for any elected official who supports it. The first row is the so-called generic ballot, which you're probably all familiar with, where you ask voters in a hypothetical who they plan to vote for, which party, the Democrats or the Republicans in the next legislative elections. And the baseline right now in the generic ballot in Maryland for legislative elections is 50% for the Democrats, 27% for the Republicans, plus 23 for the Democrats. But if you hypothetically posit, as you can see down here, that the Democratic candidate in your district supports this proposal while the Republican opposes it, the Democratic margin grows to 38 from 23, a big impact. However, imagine the reverse, the Republican, sorry for the typo, the Republican supports the proposal, the Democrat opposes the paid leave proposal. In that circumstance, the voter support is flipped and the Republican is actually helped with a net margin of 17 points. This is a very large impact, one of the larger political impacts of any issue that we've measured over the years in this way. And it just illustrates for me the potency of this issue with voters. Now, I'd like to give you two reasons that we see in the poll that would help to explain this very high level of support and this level of urgency. And the first is the pandemic. And I've seen this in a variety of different ways in our work of late. The pandemic is changing voter attitudes. It's animating voters in different ways relative to what they expect from government and from the state in particular. And here we ask them, during a time of pandemic, is it more important or less important for workers to have access to a family and medical leave program? And look at this, 84% say it's more important right now because of the pandemic. The other factor that we're really seeing in the polling is that the public recognizes the disproportionate impact on women's ability to be in a workplace and hold down a job during these times when they have many demands, as often primary caretakers for family members and others. And 59% of all the voters that we surveyed like a lot the impact, the helpful impact on women's ability to return to the workplace, to have the support that they need. Another 21% like that a little, for a total of 79%. It doesn't appear to add correctly because of rounding, but it's 4 out of 5 voters feel that way. So just in summary, I think you can see there's a profound impact of this proposal on voters. People are urgent about it, want to see it passed. Those numbers are bipartisan, they cross all lines, 9 out of 10 support it. It's one of the larger numbers that I've seen. So anyway, back to you, Rikara. Thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting that information and sharing that with us today, Steve. You know, the polling just confirmed that there is overwhelming support for Time to Care. Voters are clear that they believe we should move forward on Time to Care, and very urgently. So I'm glad that we have, you know, the support of our bill sponsors, and that they are going to try to move this forward this session. Today, you know, we heard from a number of folks on this press conference who were directly impacted or who would be directly impacted by this legislation. We also heard from business owners who, you know, talked about how great this is for business. So again, you know, we just say that the time is now to really move this forward. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't see any, but I will turn this over to Miles to take any questions. But before, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the work that you're doing to move this forward. And just again, to say that the time is now to pass Time to Care. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for joining us today. I'm still gonna do a countdown in the chat. I have not seen any questions, but also feel free to come off the mic. I think there's a small enough number in there that things won't get too crazy. But open to any questions.
This is Don Harrison. Can you, let me turn my mic down. What is some of the feedback you've had against this, your proposal?
Yeah, so I think the biggest feedback that we received thus far is the employer and employee split. I think you also heard that come from some of the comments from our bill sponsors, as well as Andy also mentioned it previously as well. So that is probably the biggest one. I think the reason why we offer a 50-50 split is because both the employees and employers are contributing into the system where both of them are benefiting. So I think that is one fitting reason why we are offering a 50-50 split. Also, the numbers of this to make it affordable for as many people as possible, having both groups contribute to the paid family leave fund and the program would benefit the most people in the state. So that is why we are proposing a 50-50 split currently.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at the chat, I still don't see any other questions, but again, feel free to come off of mute and ask your question if you have any questions.
Hi, this is Will Ford. I just have one.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Delegate Valderrama and Senator Hayes, there's been quite a number of people who see this as I guess the phrase, a common sense issue that you would think would be straightforward, almost like, as you would say the phrase, no chaser. Problem is, it still hasn't passed. Why? Thank you.
Well, I'll just take a stab and say, like any other bill that seems to be in a lot of people's eyes contentious, always takes years. We saw how long it took to pass the smoking ban. Everyone was up in arms and we were able to overcome that. I was just using that as an example, but any bill that, especially that appears to be, and I emphasize appears to be anti-business, which I repeatedly say in my testimony, it is not anti-business. I support businesses in my district, in our state, small businesses, local businesses. So really your question is, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it really is not one that can be answered specifically, except to say it takes time for people to come around, colleagues to come around and realize the importance and necessity for such a piece of legislation. Unfortunately, I was hoping that the federal level would have taken care of this for us so that we wouldn't have to consistently come back to the committee, our respective committees every year to do such a vital, important, and necessary, and deal with the necessary issues. So I don't know if I answered your question. I feel I did, but it wasn't, it wasn't a direct response that can be answered, quite frankly. I think we all agree here, it's common sense. So not to say not everyone doesn't have it, but having said that, I'll let Senator Hayes take a stab at that.
Delegate Valderrama, I believe you did an excellent job at answering the question. I will tell you that employees value the caring that their employers provide for them. Right now and later today, Budget and Tax is going to hear from some economists, but what we're seeing post-pandemic, people returning back to jobs are those who employers have given them the whole package. Some of the employers that, have low wages, that don't have other benefits, are having a hard time recruiting people back. And so I think when you have an employer, just as the small business that presented to us earlier, that show a different level of taking care of their employees, it creates for a more attractive working environment and definitely increase opportunities for healthy families, healthy communities, and healthy businesses. apologize. I have to run, Miles and everyone, but thank you all so much. Again, I cannot thank this coalition enough. Delegate Valderrama and myself had the opportunity to put our names on a bill, but it is because of this coalition and the work that you all have done. I can't go on social media lately, which I love, and not see something about family leave. People are asking me about it all the time. There's so many, and it's because it's so meaningful to so many families. So thank you all for the opportunity, and look forward to successful passage of this legislation this session. Thank you all so very much.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Senator Hayes. Back to the floor to see if we have any other questions in the room.
Yeah, this is Stetson Miller with WJZ. Just a quick question for Delegate Valderrama. So you've tried a few times to get this through. Do you feel more confident about it happening this year? And if so, why?
So I feel confident every year. I think we need that confidence and passion and motivation. I do feel this year, I want to say I know I just said confidence, but I feel more confident having that it will, because my speaker of the House has actually verbalized and publicly said, this is a priority of hers. Not that it never was, but she's not actually said it in such a open and public venue, if you will. And she and I have had conversations since she became speaker. But for me, it's probably something I can't really explain, because it's something I'm experiencing personally with her, that I feel like this is the time. And because it's such a big issue on the federal level and nationwide, it's not just a Maryland issue, obviously, it's resonating with her even more. So that's why I feel that this is the time for the Time to Care Act bill to move.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Wanted to see any other questions in the room. Okay, well, I do not see any other questions in the chat. I also do not see anyone coming off of mute. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming to the press conference today. I know we did have to shift to a virtual format. So again, thank you for your flexibility for that as well. Remember, please stay safe and look forward to continue to see you guys during the 2022 legislative session. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all so much.